Right, welcome to Thursday, the 17th of March, 2022. My name is Kwame Owusu, so thank you very much for choosing Pan-African Television. We're streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. We are also on YouTube. You can share with us what your thoughts are via those platforms, and we'll try and read them here for you. This one, I've been joined in the studios by Elvis Bota, Honorable Inu Safuseni, Mr. Kwesi Pratt. Let me quickly take you through the topics, and then we will kickstart. Blame Western sanctions on Russia for price hikes across Africa, not Ukraine war. Russian embassy says that. Coup monger granted 2 million bail. On the front page of the Daily Guide. Demolition of Bulgarian embassy in Accra sparks anger in parliament. It's on the front page of the Insight newspaper. 84 unqualified cadets enter police college. Daybreak. Stop publishers from printing textbooks offshore. Texan. Daily Graphic. Let me just read a little bit of the African story. Blame Western sanctions on Russia for price hikes across Africa, not Ukraine war. Ukraine-Russian war. Nairobi, the Russian embassy in Kenya has dismissed reports that the country's invasion of Ukraine is to blame for the high cost of living in the continent. The embassy tweeted Wednesday in response to remarks by Kenya's State House spokeswoman, Kanzi Dena, that fuel prices in the country were triggered by the crisis with Ukraine. Russian embassy in Kenya would like to point out to our Kenyan friends and partners that the real cause of the increase in prices in Africa is not Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, but the illegal unilateral sanctions imposed by the US, EU, and their followers on Russia, the embassy tweeted. Fuel prices shot up by 5 shillings on Monday in what was blamed on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The Russian embassy statement follows remarks by Dena that the rising cost of living is not exclusive to Kenya. It's a global phenomenon fueled by numerous external factors, among them the Russian-Ukraine war. Elvis, you subscribe to that?
Well, I think that last week we had the opportunity to take a bite on the happenings in Ukraine and then its effect on Africa as a continent, and the lazy and, in some cases, stupid posture of African leaders in respect of same. I think that in all of this, the truth about the matter has to do with the tensions in the international space being fueled by the actual enemy of the world, whom nobody seems to be paying much attention to. The fundamental question we should be asking, even before we apportion blames, if any, would have to do with delving into the root cause of these anarchious happenings within the international domain. I have always maintained that undoubtedly Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which I think is overly justified. In fact, there are every reasons under the sun why Putin is right to behave in the manner he has behaved. And I've always maintained that I would do worse if I were to be in the position of Putin. So the primary issue we should be looking at here is the fact that who is the one within the international domain struggling for, hegemonic prowess. There is this country, there are this group of people who think that they must be the big brother to every other country. There are this group of people who think that they are more knowledgeable than any other group of people in the world. The same group of people think that their interest, supersedes the interest of any other person in the world. And so the rest of the world must now go back to sleep and allow them to pursue their whimsical caprices to the disadvantage of the rest of the world, even to the peril of the rest of the world whom they decide or they wish to rule. These same people, group of people, at the center of all these controversies are also those who colonized Africa. A primary thing we should be asking ourselves is, throughout the history of civilization, who are the people responsible for imperial movements? Who are the group of people who have colonized the vast majority of the world, not only Africa, but even Asia and other continents? Who are the group of people who pokes their nose in the name of international law and democracy, poke their nose into the affairs of other sovereign states? Who are the people in world history renowned for creating anarchy, okay, within political systems of independent African states? Who are the people who colonized your grandfathers, my grandfathers? Who are the people sponsoring all manner of, tensions in Africa? Who are the people behind the exploitation of our resources? Who are the people behind the underdevelopment of Africa? Who are the people who come in the name of foreign aid, give us with the right, and turn around to collect multitudes with the left? Who are the people? Who are the people who have made it practically impossible for Africa to be economically independent and truly emancipated? Who are the sponsors of same? Who are behind the overthrow of the founding fathers of Africa who were forthright? Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Mandibu Keita, Julius Nyerere. Who were the people sponsoring these activities? These are the same group of people who think that today Russia should not also rest. It is now time for them to cripple Russia. I support Russia and will not blame Russia for any of this, because the same group of people are responsible for the price hikes. It can't be Russia. And you know whom they are. Your guess is as good as mine. And without missing words, I am talking about the American people. I am talking about the United States of America and its, surrogates and cohorts and affiliates who think that they are a special breed of individuals. And so the rest of the world must now go down our knees to allow for extreme westernization of even our culture and traditions. These are the very group of people who thinks that a man marrying 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives in the name of polygamy is sinful and evil. But now comes to tell us that a man who marries another man is only exercising a sexual right. And a woman who marries another woman is also exercising a sexual right. This is where we are, the hypocrisy of the world. Look, all these tensions can come to a halt if America chooses to be reasonable and fair, first of all to itself, and second to the rest of the world. KOD. Russia did not colonize Africa. Russia did not at any point in time rob Africa or any continent of its precious resources. Russia is not renowned for sponsoring anarchy in other countries. Russia is not responsible in breaking democratic pillars in Africa. Russia did not kill Patrice Lumumba. Russia did not oust Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Russia cannot be the problem for Africa and the rest of the underdeveloped world. If there is any problem, if there is any virus affecting us critically, it is the virus of the United States of America, and in this case, the EU ably backing them. Today, if Russia is fighting a cause for its own integrity, and we have said it on many occasions, even on this platform, how greedy Americans have been, how America have violated every single treaty, every single protocol they have had with even Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. In fact, in terms of international security, Russia went ahead to dissolve and to decommission the Warsaw Pact. What is NATO? What is the relevance of NATO still within the international space? America should be answering this question to the rest of the world. So you see, this I know it all attitude, and I'm the master of creation, and apart from God there is no other than me, is the problem. So if today US at one point in time forced Russia to pack out their nuclear parks from Cuba in the name of it being of proximal threat to the safety of America. What is the interest of America in the vast majority of Eastern European countries and former Soviet Union states that they have now brought into NATO? And the final assault is to now bring Ukraine also into NATO as a means of undermining the safety and territorial integrity of Russia. And I think the Russian people should be stupid. They should keep quiet. They shouldn't keep quiet. There is always a reaction to every action. It's a fundamental law of motion in physics. So US should not think that they do the things they do and expect other countries, for example Russia, with whom they have a long-standing period of sustained and military tensions with, to shut up and sit down. It does not happen that way. They can pursue their rise to hegemony through very constructive international engagement, not through this Anansi tricks, these spider tricks. Every story you have read about Koko Anansi, just reflect well on America and you realize that every Koko Anansi story is actually about the nature and being of the American people. And I'm happy, and I'm ending on this note, that Donald Trump have mentioned that, look, the lack of leadership of the American people, the lack of leadership of Biden's administration is partly responsible for the aggression we are seeing now. So the problem in price hikes of goods cannot be at the instance of Russia. Not when you, same United States of America and the EU, have imposed unnecessary economic sanctions on them. You have cut off the importation, or shall I say the sending of luxury goods, in some cases even medicinal products, to Russia. And you think that Russia should open its doors and its windows to keep on sending what they have to the rest of the world. You cannot fetch from the basin and expect the water not to reduce. Is it right? So price hikes and whatever should be laid at the doorsteps of the US. And please, we're begging and calling on the United States of America, even through their embassy in Ghana, that they should reconsider their foreign policy, ambitions. Okay? They should reconsider their foreign policy ambitions, realizing that a lot of them are endemic to the rest of the world. We see what happens in India. We see what's happening in Cyprus. We see what's happening in Pakistan. Okay? As for Africa, the least talk about it, the better. Liberia, we saw what happened. Syria, we saw what happened. Gaddafi's country, Libya, we saw what happened. And America is always at the center of all this controversy. If there's any devil to blame, that devil is America. If there is any demon to cast out, that demon is America.
Well, thank you very kindly, Elvis Buta, for this brilliant submission. Let me now come to Honorable Inusa Fuseni, the farmer.
Yes, so
yes, sir.
When your neighbor's house is on fire, you take advice and look for water close by. Position water close by you so that when your house is on fire, you can extinguish the fire. So Kenyans are saying that the fuel prices, the government should do something about the increasing cost of fuel in their country. This is a warning to our Ghanaian leaders. That is coming home. It's coming home fast. The fuel distributors have said that by the end of this week, fuel prices might hit 10 cedis per liter. In fact, some filling stations
it's 10.
have already indicated that. Shell has indicated that. And Total,
yeah,
that is 10 cedis per liter.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, 2 days ago, or was it yesterday, I bought fuel in my car, 300 Ghana cedis. When I was driving here, when I was coming to town, I bought the fuel at Kwabenya filling station. Came into town, went back. As I was driving back, my fuel indicator is telling me that I need to buy more fuel. Well, in a country where now if you buy fuel into your car, actually, you fear to drive the car. Because you see, when you drive the car, the fuel will finish and you won't have money to buy more fuel. That's the situation in which we are. And I don't blame Russia, and I don't blame America. What is the research unit of the security intelligence of this country doing? Or what was it doing? When the signs were clear that Russia might invade Ukraine, knowing that Russia supplies the world with huge resources, huge petroleum resources. I mean, Germany is having a difficulty to take a decision on sanctioning Russia on energy, because Germany depends on Russian energy close to about 40%. Or Europe in general depends on Russian energy. And so the sanctions regime that are being imposed
did not include energy supply.
Did not include energy supply. And because their argument is simply that the sanctions on energy will hurt Germany more than it will hurt Russia. So clearly, here we sat and said, the very first week that the war started, crude oil prices had jumped to 105 dollars per barrel, and never experienced for a very long time. And so countries had to adjust. Yes, so clearly the war is one reason why we have fuel prices. Even without the sanctions, we knew that supplies would be disrupted. It's not only fuel, even food crops. The General Secretary of the United Nations had said that poor countries in Africa will suffer more from the war between Russia and Ukraine, because both Ukraine and Russia produce huge quantities of wheat, and they're cheap. And so poor countries in Africa get their supplies from both Russia and Ukraine. The war has disrupted that. And so bread prices will increase. I mean, if you are going to, you can't have that cheap supply, so it will increase. We have been told that Russia produces a lot of fertilizer. Yeah, so, and then sanctions will affect farmers. In the next farming season, they will have cheap fertilizer. And so, so many things, the consequences of the war are going to be quite drastic on African countries. But we must look inward and blame our leaders. Because, you see, you can't live on a day-to-day basis as a leader. You can't rule the country on a day-to-day basis and on thought basis. Say, well, let's do this then tomorrow and let tomorrow take care of itself. That's not how you plan a country. That's not how you govern a country.
Knee-jerk.
Knee-jerk reactions to economic development of the country. That's where we are where we are. That's where we are where we are. When COVID struck, they thought that COVID was the worst that had happened to the economy. The NDC government had established the stabilization fund and said part of our petroleum resources, the resources that we will get, the money that we will get from selling our petroleum, should be put in the stabilization fund to be able to correct distortions that might occur by reason of changes in the economic outlook.
Absolutely.
For the MPP government, that economic change in the economic outlook was COVID. So they raided the stabilization fund. 2 days ago, I was reading John Dramani Mahama. I said, no, my boss, don't talk. Don't talk. The history will bear you out. When they said John Dramani Mahama was incompetent and could not manage the economy of this country, in 2016, not a single cedi was borrowed from the Bank of Ghana to help the country, to help the government run the country. Not a single cedi. All the money that was raised to run this country was raised from taxes. And that's why NDC was confident to say that even assuming that we were going to borrow, we should not borrow beyond 5% of the budget. But we didn't borrow at all. NDC did not borrow at all. Not borrowing was equated to incompetence. Today, COVID, what it came, they said, oh, challenge the fundamentals of our economy. And so they went, well, Bank of Ghana alone, they took close to 30 billion Ghana cedis from Bank of Ghana. So clearly, clearly. We don't have buffers. Now there are no buffers. There are no buffers. Now that an e-levy cannot go, now that the road tolls have been cancelled, now that the taxes are not coming in, now that you've restored the benchmark values and disturbing farmers, because farmers cannot sell their produce and compete against imported products. So food prices, when they increase, will affect the ordinary Ghanaian. Just like fuel prices, when they increase, they affect the ordinary Ghanaian, and they are affecting the Kenyans as well. So you see, my submission today is that, yes, the war, the American actions, European actions, Russian actions, Ukrainian actions would have led us into this difficulty. But don't we have a responsibility as a people? Doesn't the government have a responsibility as the group in charge with the management of the affairs of this country to put in place strategies to mitigate whatever hardships that will come as a result of unforeseen consequences like Russia invading Ukraine? Don't we have that responsibility? And if our government fails in putting in place systems that will mitigate the buffer stock, so what grains have they bought? So we have the buffer stock. It's an institution that we thought that, look, things like this could happen. So let's establish the buffer stock company. Have they been given money enough? Have they stocked up enough foodstuff to be able to release onto the market? Bust. Bulk oil storage, transportation or something like that. Bust. What is in their fuel tanks? What's there that we can release periodically to cushion the rise in fuel? Government is between the rock and the hard place, because we are not getting the needed revenue. Last month, public workers had to be paid in the few in the days, in few days in March, in some days in March actually, because government could not keep to the commitment, its commitment to pay them by 25th of February. Here on this platform, we all agreed that if nothing is done this month, and we were all commenting on what the Speaker Backburn has said, that if nothing is done, this month will be far more worse than February, and that we don't know what will happen in April. So what is government? What is government's strategic plan? What is Nana Akufo-Addo and his government doing? Drivers are warning that if nothing is done about the fuel increases, they might have to take to the streets and demonstrate. The fuel price build-up still contains some taxes. Is government willing and able to let those taxes grow to reduce the price of fuel? Will government do that? Or because government is not getting enough revenue, government will still stick to the price build-up and pass the hardship to the people of this country? All this is a management problem. It's a management problem. Why are other countries within the West African sub-region not having these problems? Togo, for instance, they're not facing this problem. They're not facing spiraling fuel prices. So why haven't we be able to manage our own affairs in such a way that we could mitigate whatever hardships that this war could bring to our country, Ghana? And that put it squarely at the doorstep of leadership. I have said since the beginning of 2017 that this government appears to lack direction. They're doing things like Pilolo. You know that the game we used to play as small boys, Pilolo.
Yeah.
Catch me if you can. That's what they're doing. And that is what has led us to where we are. Nobody is now speaking. The finance minister is not speaking because what is he going to say? He says we have been chased out of the money market. We can't go and borrow again. We are now almost at debt distress, but this was sounded to us long time ago. I mean, the dollar flight in this country is so I mean, intense, that is affecting the demand for dollars in Ghana. It's affecting the value of the city. And now the city, the value of the city is falling like dry leaves in the hammer because everything is going out. People are now looking for dollars everywhere. And so people have, and you know the rules of the law of demand and supply. When a commodity is demanded more, the price what? So the price of dollar is going up. And if the price of dollar is going up, the price of our cities, and the price of city going up affects the price of fuel at the pumps.
Absolutely.
Because we bring it in. Even though we can console ourselves that we produce some oil, some crude oil, it's not enough to mitigate whatever, because we only have a share.
18%.
18% share.
Terribly
so we are in deep crisis. I think that better late than never. The fact that Nana Akufo-Addo's government cannot do all does not prevent them from doing something. It's a proverb in my local language, the Bane. It says that if you can't do all, that doesn't prevent you from doing something. So they should do something. We know they can do all, but they should do something. They should demonstrate leadership. They should mitigate the hardship. Even it was not now in 2000 and in 2000 to 2004. My brother here, Kosi Pratt, and others took to the streets when it was not even like this. So we have given Nana Akufo-Addo and his government a lot of opportunities to demonstrate what they can do to take us out of the doldrums. But every now and then their decisions are sinking us further into the doldrums. So I bring the situation right home, and I won't take it to Russia. I won't take it to America. I say, what are we doing as a people to ensure that our lives improve, that we get the benefits of our democracy, that we don't stand in the sun to put people in leadership just because of their own personal aggrandizement. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Pratt, respectfully.
Well, you know, it would have been very, very difficult to explain the current situation in Ukraine if Ukraine's president, Zelensky, was not a professional comedian. The fact of his being a professional comedian makes it very easy to explain what is happening in Ukraine now. Now, which kind of leader would assemble hundreds of thousands of bottles of beer, put petrol in them, and cock them with racks and give them to untrained civilians to go and fight off a Russian invasion? Which leader does that? And yet that is what Zelensky did. Zelensky actually said that his people could fight off the Russians with Molotov cocktails. So everywhere in Kiev, you had bottles of beer, empty bottles of beer, and they were packing it with petrol and racks. If this is not comedy, then what then is comedy? Very strange thinking. It doesn't end there. It doesn't end there at all. All the Russians wanted was an assurance that indeed Ukraine would not be used by NATO as the base for attacking them, and that Ukraine should not become a member of NATO and should not allow its territory to be used to attack the Russians. If that assurance was obtained by the Russians, there would be no war. Nothing would happen. My brother, you know what happened yesterday? After 21 days of war, after 21 days of bombardment, after nearly 3 million people displaced and so on, Zelensky now comes and says, we are not interested in joining NATO. We want to be neutral. I mean, What explains this if it's not comedy? I mean, if Zelensky was not a professional comedian, how can you explain this? He says, never, I won't agree, we will join NATO, we are a sovereign state. We are ready to face you. Come and kill our people if you want, we will resist. With bottles of petrol, we will resist the Russian army. I mean, incredible. So all these people who have died, all the things which have been destroyed, for what? Yesterday when I heard Zelensky, I couldn't believe it. And then, you know, my goodness, yesterday Zelensky was a pathetic figure. He was saying that, no, we will not be neutral. As for being neutral, no, we will not be neutral because you are fighting us. But anyway, we would not join NATO and we have never joined NATO and so on. What is this double speak? What is this double speak? And people are dying. It's just incredible. You know, we all have to learn important lessons from what is happening in Ukraine. The United States of America and other NATO members were urging the Ukrainians to fight. We will bring you weapons. We will do this. We will do that. They were commending the bravery of the Ukrainian people. Then the Russian tanks started rolling in. 2 days after the Russian tanks started rolling in, what did the U.S. do? They called Zelensky and said, my friend, run away. They are coming. What can explain this beyond comedy? After all the noise they had made, they called Zelensky and said, my friend, run away. They are coming. And then Zelensky says he's not running away. He said, you're a brave man. You're a very brave man. If you're not running away, you're a brave man. We will support you. And then the question was, what are you going to do to support Zelensky? One of the things that they announced was that all these Russian billionaires, they have beautiful, massive houses in Europe and so on. They have very expensive yachts and so on. Say, we will seize all that. How does that help Ukraine? How does that punish Russia? The millionaires, most of whom don't even stay in Russia. They have mansions in Paris, they have mansions in London and so on. You go and seize them and do what with those mansions? So we're going to seize the mansions of the oligarchs and seize their yachts. And that's a way of helping you. And Zelensky somehow believed that that will help him. In any case, if we are talking about oligarchs, Russian oligarchs, from what I'm learning, are only 15% of the oligarchs around the world. The majority of the oligarchs are in the United States of America. America has more billionaires. In fact, America has about 174 billionaires, those who fall into the category of oligarchs and so on. Russia has how many? Puny number, and so on. So, what is all this madness and stupidity? Unbelievable. Then they said, okay, we will do something else to support you. We are going to punish Russia. We are not going to make Russia, we are not going to allow Russia to be in a position to sell its oil and gas. And then very quickly they realized that most of Russian oil and gas were being sold to the NATO member countries. And that if the NATO member countries could not buy the oil and gas, their economies would collapse. And that the civil strife which would be promoted in the NATO countries would be so much. Then quickly the NATO countries met and said, no, we agree, we will take measures against the Russians and so on, but give us 27 months. So that we can look for alternative sources of supply. Give us 27 months. Can you believe what is going to happen in the next 27 months? So as we speak now, Russia continues to sell gas and oil to even NATO member countries, as we speak now. The U.S. said we are going to look for alternatives, you know. And one of the things that the U.S. did very quickly was to rush to Venezuela. Before this, Ukrainian war, Venezuela was the home of the devil and so on. The government had, Nicolas Maduro had to be uprooted. Now, all of a sudden, the U.S. realized that after all, Nicolas Maduro was not the agent of the devil, and that they can do business with Nicolas Maduro. So they are rushing to go and do business with Nicolas Maduro. Well, I'm waiting to see what the Venezuelan authorities will do. But my goodness, if the Venezuelan authorities decide to do business with America against Russia, it will be a new development in history. Because without Russian support, they would have crashed the Venezuelan government a long time ago. And I think we are all waiting with bated breath. Then there were the African countries who jumped into the fray and started making all kinds of noises, condemning Russia and so on, supporting America, voting with the U.S. in the Security Council and so on. And you remember, we were here, and I was saying that these African leaders, what is wrong with them? What are they thinking about? Are they thinking about their interest? What do they think that they are promoting? Now you see what is happening. This is what they call the blowback effect of sanctions. And sometimes the blowback effects are more severe than the persons targeted with sanctions, the countries targeted with sanctions. The blowback effect. Look at Ghana. What has happened to us? And we are only suffering the blowback effect, just the blowback effect, not the full impact yet. Of course, you do know that since Akufo-Addo's government came to power, petroleum prices had doubled before the Ukrainian war. So the Ukrainian war cannot explain what is happening in the petroleum sector. It cannot explain all of that. But we are going to become victims of the blowback effect. Yesterday, I was listening to some officials of the UN and so on, and they're all crying. Because all these sanctions, what they're going to lead to is that there is going to be hunger in the world. As for the Russians, they will feed themselves all right. Look, the ruble will lose value and so on. But Russia is not a small country like Ghana. Russia is a big country. They will survive. But the hunger that is going to face the world, including people in the West, the poverty level, the way it is rising in the United Kingdom is unbelievable. I mean, who would have believed some time ago that people will be queuing for petrol in the United Kingdom on the streets of London? It has happened. It is happening now. The supply chain disruptions. Now you go to the supermarkets in the UK, you go to the supermarkets in European capitals and so on. They are empty because of supply chain disruptions. Agriculture throughout the world is going to suffer because Russia and Ukraine, in fact Russia more, produce about 40% of the fertilizer we require for agriculture in the world. You understand? If you take wheat exports, if you add Ukraine and Russia, the two countries account for more than 40% of the total supply of wheat in the world. So if we were thinking about all this, and then we asked ourselves, so what is the price to pay? We said, look, don't put weapons of mass destruction in Ukraine. Don't target Russia with your weapons. Let Ukraine, like Finland, become a neutral country. And there are many neutral countries in the world. It is not a crime to be neutral. Being neutral does not affect the expression of your sovereignty. The whole world would not be suffering these consequences. Finland is a neutral country. Finland has made it clear it will never join NATO. What was Kwame Nkrumah advocating when he led the formation of the non-aligned movement? Neutrality, positive neutrality. Kwame Nkrumah, Suharto, Fidel Castro, and so on. They advocated positive neutrality in international affairs. The same thing that Ukraine was required to declare in order to save the war. Ukraine said no. And you know, Zelensky, as for Zelensky, oh my goodness. They say he's a brave man. Maybe he is a very brave man. But you see, being brave without brains sometimes is a big problem. Zelensky actually went to the extent of saying that he wanted to station nuclear weapons in his country. How dare you? And if you want to station nuclear weapons in your country, you think that the Russians will sit down, fold their arms, allow you to station your nuclear weapons there so you can attack them in the future? Can't believe this. And Masa, if you look at the geopolitics, Russia was afraid that the center of Moscow could be hit within 5 minutes if those weapons were ever stationed in Ukraine. Who would have accepted that? Now look at how the whole world is suffering. The whole world is suffering. You remember when this war started, I was here and I said, nobody profits from war. War is a very dangerous thing. In fact, it has more devastating impact on the working people, the working class and so on. And therefore, we should avoid war by all means. Nobody will profit from a war. Yesterday, I listened to Joe Biden and I laughed. I couldn't help myself laughing at a very serious situation. Joe Biden, who can hardly walk. You understand? They have to prop him up. He can hardly walk. He's sleeping half of the time and so on. He is there showing bravado. We will fight. You know, we will help the Ukrainians to fight. Joe Biden helped who to fight? It's just a joke, you know. But this is an expensive joke. This is a huge joke, but it's the most expensive joke because the repercussions on us and the rest of the world are huge. One other thing which has come up as a result of this so-called war is just the deeply rooted racism in Ukraine. I mean, you can't believe it. I saw a documentary on what they called colored children. I'm embarrassed that in 2022, this can happen in any country. Africans who go there as students or businessmen and so on, when they go and cohabit with their ladies, and Ukrainians are very beautiful women and so on, and they have children, the women don't want to have anything to do with the children. Because it's like a taboo to give birth with an African and so on. So they dump them in orphanages. And if this is not racism, what else could be racism? I've seen videos of Africans escaping the war and they are told that no, this bus is not for black people. This bus is for... What this war has exposed is deep-seated racism. And you see, if you think that the deep-seated racism is just on the streets and so on, you are wrong. Top officials in NATO countries and so on have said, how can this be happening in Europe? This thing, they normally happening in Africa and other places. They have opened their mouth to say it. As for Africans, we can die. No problem. War, Europe is not befitting of war. It's Africa which is befitting of war and so on. They open their mouth and they say it. Top-level officials. And you are sitting in Ghana. You are sitting in Flagstaff House. You say, I support Ukraine. You support Ukraine for what? You support Ukraine for what? You don't know your history? You don't know your circumstances? You haven't heard about the blowback effect? You haven't heard Zelensky saying that national sovereignty is not the most important consideration and that they are going to be neutral? What is this? I wish that this war comes to a quick end. I wish that the Ukrainians and the Russians get back to the negotiation table again as quickly as possible. Yesterday, they were all saying that they were making very good progress and that at the next level of talks, they will be able to arrive at some understandings which will lead to ending the war. But the whole war was unnecessary, completely unnecessary, could have been avoided if some leaders had started thinking. 8 years ago, Russia started making its security concerns known to the whole world. So-called NATO leaders ignored it. In any case, why do you have NATO now? After the collapse of, after the dismantling of the Warsaw Pact, why do you have NATO? What communism is NATO fighting today? What communism is NATO fighting today? Unbelievable. But hey, we are all in it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Let me remind you again that we are streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. So you can leave your comments there. We will try and read as many as we can here. Well, we found a way of bringing Ghana and Africa into the conversation, but it's important that we deal with another very disturbing incident which occasioned, I think, 2 days or 3 days ago. The demolition of the Bulgarian embassy in Accra, which has sparked anger in Parliament. I listened to the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, who indicated to us that the Bulgarian on paper, the embassy on paper is still, I think, still has about 10 years lease or so, and so they don't understand why this person moved it. But Honorable Inus of saying, with respect, let me come to you on this subject matter.
Well, the impunity in this country is increasing by the day. You remember about 4 years ago, there was a similar attempt to demolish the Nigerian embassy.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Now, people are just grabbing state lands. I say people, I've not mentioned anybody's name. Because somebody said some people were grabbing and they had to go to court. Grabbing state lands with impunity. And when they do, and they give them the fiat, they go at 3 o'clock in the morning with the company of the police to eject the embassy officer. I don't know what they think about our international image and our reputation as a country. This lawlessness must stop. So many years ago, Professor Kumado wrote an article at the University of Ghana. It's just like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Okay, you said that you acquired the lands from the local authorities, the Ghana chiefs, for the purposes of public development. And so you were going to build offices for public officials. And those offices were to be housed were to be used by these public officers to deliver public good. So you argued that the Ghana people should give you the land, so because when you bring these public officials, they will implement policies that will inure to the general benefit and welfare of the people. And they gave you the land. You paid almost nothing for the lands. So many years later, you have now the Land Commission and some government officials have now constituted themselves into landowners. Landowners, so the fact that you have just been put in the office, you are now a landowner. And you are now presiding over the public lands and determining what happens to those public lands. You can't do that. As a Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, that was always my argument. I always argued. And you remember when I got to the ministry, I put a ban on the sale of public lands because I understood my duty to be there to protect public lands. Because you see, government will need the lands. Akufo-Addo says he's building a cathedral. If we had allowed private people to convert all the lands where the cathedral is going to be built, would there have been land for a cathedral to be built? We had to demolish houses that had been renovated for the Supreme Court judges to be able to build the cathedral. Can you imagine that even if those houses were not there? And I can tell you as a matter of fact that when I was there, applications were brought for the purposes of acquiring those lands. But they said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Kwabenya lands, you can't do that. I mean, government had a policy of acquiring these lands for public goods, not acquiring the lands and in future selling it to themselves. At the Lawlessness, after Kufuor had taken part of the land for the purposes of developing the African village.
Yes, yes.
The other half, which had the poles,
Yeah.
I had incessant applications coming to me that those, those areas, we call it Lawlessness because, that's the aircraft path. And so the poles communicate with the aircraft, but now modern technology, they argued that you don't need those marks there to be able to communicate with the aircraft now, and so the land should be. I said no, let's leave it. When we leave the land there, in future, government might find a use for that land. Now it's gone. People think that the decisions that that's why some years ago, Mr. Kosipra, I said it on a platform like this. When we lost power, actually many people thought that we were sitting in the office, those of us who were in office knew nothing about governance. That was the general impression. The Mama's ministers were just useless. We didn't know what we were doing. But I remember that before Nana Atamis won the elections, in the Vasquez case, you remember there was a lady involved, a Ghanaian lady. She sought me out as a lawyer and told me, these people, don't let them come to power. The MPP, don't let them come to power. When MPP is in power, they are in power for business. They're in power for themselves. You think that the landing of the cocaine along the beach was done by reckless Venezuelans? They had collaborators. That's what the lady told me. It's come to pass. I mean, many people now know that there's a lot of grabbing, land grabbing, and that people, the South African expression, state capture, that people have now captured aspects of the state and using it for their benefits. But it's a sad development. Everywhere that you go now, you see private development on public lands.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. And
the land guards and
the unacceptable and unfortunate development is that it even knows no bounds. They don't go to foreign lands. Even lands where embassies are occupying, they purchase them. And when you go, they say, oh, we have the right to sell the land. It's our state property, we have the right.
But what's Lands Commission's role in all of this?
But Land Commission is the person selling the land. Land Commission is the person selling the land.
But they know that the lease is not expired. So how would they?
So first of all, when I even made the order, when I called the Lands Commission, them to say no, you can't sell public lands. And I'm putting as a policy, I'm putting a ban on the sale of public lands.
You became an enemy.
Oh, they came in a delegation to our office. Unfortunately, they didn't know how to read the Constitution. I agree with them that well, in terms of state lands, the Land Commission is vested with authority on behalf of the president to take care of public lands. I conceded. But the Constitution also says that in terms of policy on how to deal with state lands, the minister shall, and when I give directives, they have to comply. So I read that to them. So this is a policy. The policy is that we will not sell state lands. That's a policy. So go back and work with that policy. We will not sell state lands. Simple. And that's how we're able to bring some sanity into the state lands. Because people just go there. I mean, even officials come to you. First of all, if they want to get your support to dissipate state lands, they make offers to you. They bring surplus and tell you, oh, land is... I say, they didn't put me in office to acquire land at cantonments. I was a minister of lands and natural resources. I don't have land in cantonments. I don't have land in East Lagos, East what airport. I don't have land. No. I said, no, this is not my responsibility. They didn't bring me to this office for me to acquire land for myself. For what? They brought me to protect the land. And the protecting doesn't mean converting it to my own use. But I'm telling you, under this government, all the new up and coming persons have got lands around all of them. They bought lands like there's no tomorrow. But I say that it's possible to be a minister without acquiring land at those places, the prime areas. It's possible. Because why? Even it's immoral. It's immoral. As a lawyer, I couldn't buy land as it is legal. I made a minister, and the next day I have land at East Legon. Is it moral? Is it not it? Is it moral? The people were not even lawyers. They didn't even practice for one day when they entered politics. And they now have land at East Legon. They now have public lands all over the place. They have built marches all over the place. This is why our politics is deteriorating. Because people are saying it. But for people to go and acquire government lands on which embassies are situated, it's a no-no. 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 You can't do that. You can't do that because you will flout the Vienna Convention, especially when there is evidence that there is, a running lease.
Yeah, it's subsisting.
No, you can't do that. I mean, the lease confers some rights.
Absolutely.
On the occupier of the land.
I think even the new Land Act 1036 has even made some changes that it's automatically renewable. If,
yeah. But that's a distance.
Yeah.
But what I'm even saying is that it has not expired.
Absolutely.
If it had expired and had not been renewed, then you could say that, oh, it has expired and not renewed.
Yeah.
But it has not expired. It has not expired.
In any event, if it has expired without renewal, is the eviction and demolition the first step? It isn't.
Who is even evicting and demolition? It's like they've sold the land to a private person. That's the problem. That's the immorality I'm talking about. They sold the land. French embassy. When we were developing the Flagstaff House, we saw that their nearness to the Flagstaff House was such that it could compromise security. So we entered into discussions with them to move them away from that place. That property is still sitting in the name of what? The French embassy. Except that they're not using it for the purposes of an embassy because of the nearness to the Flagstaff House. But we had to. Even the old Nigerian embassy, we had to enter into agreement with them on land that was suitable to them, for the use of embassy, before we could take the old Nigerian embassy. But who am I? Under this government, there appear to be no rules. There appear to be no rules. There appear to be no rules.
Thank you, Elvis. I think this is why you can only add a little.
Yes, I think that a lot of in-depth technical discussion has been made on this point. And for me, quite honestly, apart from seeing these headlines, I never knew that such a bizarre action has been taking place. Little did we know that even today it has happened. And so it reaffirms my consistent and persistent calls for the introduction of a high degree of nationalism in our body politics. Extreme partisanship would always breed situations of this nature for the capitalist benefit of doers of evil against the state. And unfortunately, Keo, the way you speak the truth, especially at a young age such as mine, you are disrespectful, you are arrogant, you are a liar, you are evil, you are a commotion causer. Nobody should admit you into any place. These are the realities bedeviling the growth of the economy. These are the realities bedeviling the growth of Ghana. Look, we no longer subscribe to the universal principle of working for wealth. People just finish national service. National service. He has never established an Indomie selling center. He doesn't have a kiosk. He doesn't have a lotto kiosk. He has no relation with business. You go to the Registrar General, he does not have any company to whom he is director. But because of the kind of political architecture we have, and because of the kind of capitalist, entrepreneurial, political activities we do, this is how riches is made. Me, any day, anytime, I've always been proud that I have not even as a member of a ruling party, I cannot be blamed for any of these, kind of things happening. Look, embassies and diplomatic missions go beyond the scope of just intergovernmental relations. But it speaks volume of your reputation within the international domain and invites the rest of the international community to an understanding of the terms under which they must relate with you, they must relate with your businesses and your investors. So what you do to a country such as Bulgaria, you might probably think that Bulgaria is of no economic and social relevance to you. This is the kind of thinking I'm trying to read into the matter. As a student of international, I do my PhD in international affairs and diplomacy. And so you will understand that the temptation of thinking that there is irrelevance of certain countries relative to your social and economic direction, for which reason you must treat them with a pinch of salt, becomes high to people with this kind of political, entrepreneurial, capitalist orientation. But then, the ignorance of it is that you are telling the rest of the international community, whom you need more, how they should treat you. Because, look, the principle and doctrine of reciprocity can be by alliance. We have the shelter alliance strategies in international security and foreign policy cooperation. So yes, what we have done to Bulgaria, Bulgarians can do so to us under the principle of reciprocity. If they elect not to do, another mighty country with interest in Bulgaria can hide within that alliance, take shelter in that doctrine, and then punish Ghana economically or otherwise. So it does not matter who is in government. What matters is, what are we doing within the international space? What has happened is unfortunate. It's a direct, shall I say, breach of the provisions of specific articles of the Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic Relations. The Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic Relations of 1961 is clear that diplomatic immunity for the purposes of coexistence within governments is key for the operationalization of the common good of humanity within the international space. So if this is what we do, we have undermined the provisions of that particular convention. And let's not forget, we're a vulnerable country ourselves, economically and in any other dimension. So we live with that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Prance, please, let's end with this.
Well, you see, I can't believe what has happened. I mean, this doesn't happen in any civilized society. This can only happen in a banana republic. An embassy, a fully accredited diplomatic mission, embassy. And then people wake up with cudgels and so on, under the protection of the police, and demolish an embassy. What flagrant violation of the Geneva Convention. Unbelievable. And then I'm told that the Minister of Foreign Affairs says, oh, we're not involved. Not involved. The Ghana government is enjoined to provide protection to diplomatic missions. It's our duty to provide protection to diplomatic missions, to make sure that this doesn't happen. I am so embarrassed. I am so embarrassed, I don't know what to say. I mean, what is this? How can this happen? And the people went and demolished an embassy. In fact, this is an act of war. This is a declaration of war. To go and demolish an embassy is an act of war. It's a declaration of war. And we are sitting there, all we can say is that, oh, we didn't order it. When the police service is involved, how can government say that we didn't order it? Jesus Christ. This is what Ghana has come to. This is what Ghana has come to. Unbelievable. Yes, inflation is going up. Petroleum prices are shooting through the skies. The price of maize is quadrupled and so on. We know that. But this is another low. This level is another low. Very, very low level. Unbelievable. Every day we get embarrassed as Ghanaians. Every day there's some embarrassment. Now it's so difficult for any Ghanaian to sit down and hold your head high up in the sky. Every day we have to bow down our heads in shame. Complete shame. Look at what we have done. And the explanation of the foreign ministry is that we didn't order it. And if this was the first time, maybe we could even excuse it. The Nigerian High Commission had the same experience. The Nigerian High Commission was raided. What is this level of lawlessness? Complete lawlessness. I don't know what to say.
Well, we are tongue-tied. Look at you. And yeah.
You remember we were at the brink of aggression with them?
Yeah.
They almost attacked Ghana. Now, if you look at Article 22 of the same Convention on Diplomatic, the Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic Relations, it tells you clearly that this is a declaration of war. When you touch even the premises, invasion of premises alone is enough declaration.
What surprises me is the bravado.
I think that what the foreign ministry have said cannot be an acceptable excuse. The president, as a matter of fact, should summon the security corps, the minister for foreign affairs, the minister for the interior. There should be something done on this.
You see,
and
Elvis, I agree with you. But you see,
it should happen.
The people don't fear the president.
He should make them fear him then.
They don't fear the president. That's why they are acting with impunity.
Because it cannot be an explanation.
This.
Because apparently
I'm sure the president should be shocked himself.
Land Commission said they had indicated to them that they couldn't enter. But they flattered that and
who gave them permission? Who gave them permission?
The question is who gave them permission?
That's the whole point. You know,
so it is why the president must summon the relevant central ministers.
Somebody realized it will escalate, so let's just... Anyway, but if you have 84 unqualified cadets enter police college, perhaps this is the result we'll be happy. But thank you very kindly, Elvis, for your time. Unfortunately, we cannot deal with the other issues. I'm pained, but... Well, thank you, Honorable Mr.
But you see, when you have 84 unqualified, then you should be prepared to deal with the complexity of police and robbery activities.
Yes. Mr. Pra, thank you.
Sometimes the very qualified ones rather do it. Those who robbed were awarded best drilling cadets. And so it's attitude.
It means you don't check their background.
You don't check their background.
Does anyone have background in this country? Does anyone have background in this country? What are you talking?
Anyway, I'll see you guys when I see you. Have a nice day. God bless. Bye.